So this is the area 2.
This is area 2.
And
Experimental breweries set up for wood aging and mixed fermentations. So a whole gamut of experimental beers. So we have a separate tasting room here, and what our aim and hope is that people come here, experience beers that they've never experienced before, and walk away with an expanded definition of what beer can be. That is kind of what we're shooting for here in Area 2.
kind of like a beer college.
In a way, and it's we have a bit of a campus here, so we have
It's true.
2 separate tasting rooms and brewery operations that are within the same campus, within a short walk from another.
Oh, the barrels.
Barrels and then large wooden tanks,
Yeah.
often called foudres
Yep.
by the French term. And in contrast to the 110-year-old factory building,
This is
this
brand
space
new.
is brand new. Just walk right up the steps here.
And you were saying this is just a year old almost.
Almost. So opened middle of March in 2019. So a big part of the reason for the separate building is we use all sorts of wild yeast and bacteria here that we would not want to introduce over at Two Roads.
I see some of their little pictures right there.
To the various microbes that help produce these beers. So people walk in and then they walk across this bridge to the tasting room where they're taken through the brewery.
Now, how many barrels do you have there now?
We have just under 2,000, and this is only a portion of them. We have another space outside of public view that has more barrels in it. But this is a lot of stuff that is stored for long-term aging. Some of these barrels, we have a few barrels that have beer from 2016 in them, and majority of these are going on 2 years old. So we hold the beer till it's ready, and then even if we put a single batch into, say, 40 separate oak barrels, each barrel kind of takes on a life of its own and tastes different. So when it goes to, part of my job is to blend barrels together to produce a uniform flavor that we like. So
that's along the lines of a lambic type of blending.
yes, and it's kind of where brewing meets winemaking in a way. So this is really, in many ways, more like a winery than a brewery.
Okay.
So we're storing beers for years at a time, and then we're tasting barrels individually and coming up with a blend for the final product based on barrels that do taste sometimes very different from each other, even though it's the exact same beer that went into them previously, a year and a half, 2 years before that.
Right.
The end character can be very different per individual barrel.
Wow. Now, in most breweries, consistency is the key because the consumer wants to get exactly the same thing, exactly the same way, exactly the same time, and exactly the same temperature. But this is not
a
that
different
way.
animal. Again, this is more like a winery where you have allowable variations. In fact, people anticipate and want variation from one year to the next. So that is allowable here at this type of setup.
And to follow in on the wines, of course, are you have different ages for them, the vintages.
Right.
Are you thinking about vintaging beer as well?
Not only thinking about it, we do it.
Okay.
So certain brands that we produce, we will do once a year, and they will have a vintage. If it's cork finished beers with the year of the packaging is on the cork, so it's plainly readable to the consumer. So we are very much in favor of vintage dating a beer, and certain beers that we do have really an indefinite shelf life.
Wow.
Years.
What's the oldest one that you've tasted or heard of people holding on to and trying?
Oldest beer I've ever tasted was bottled in 1948.
And?
It was definitely not at its peak, I'll give it that, but it was still interesting to drink and was still drinkable, albeit very sweet. It was kind of like a combination of beer and maple syrup, to be honest. It was some certain amount of the water content had evaporated out over all those decades,
Right.
but still a very interesting experience that I was happy to have.
So a beer that wasn't meant to be cellared can be cellared.
Yes, we just can't guarantee the results are something you're going to like, but I think it's always interesting.
Now the rest of this down here, these are your fermentation tanks?
These are packaging tanks, and these are called right beer tanks.
Oh, okay.
We're here to do some larger volume batches. And over here, if we do a large batch, we don't have the machinery here to package, say 20,000 cans of a certain batch. So what we do have is a pipeline that connects from area 2 back over to Two Roads, the mothership. So over there we have all the machinery we need to package,
to do the packaging,
to can or bottle or keg. What in essence the largest batch would be 200 barrels, which is about 6,200 gallons. So it's a lot of beer.
It is. And on this side of the house, what do we have?
So these are fermentation vessels. So we make all the wort over at Two Roads and then send it over the pipeline here to one of these fermenters, where we may do a mixed culture fermentation in one of these tanks, or we may just use a wild yeast. And then from here, typically after a month or so in these tanks, the beer will be transferred into barrels, and where it'll be aged for a varying amounts of time depending on the beer.
So this is kind of your sandbox.
In a way, yes.
And what has most surprised you about the beers that have been brewed here in the last year?
I guess most surprised me, and not really surprised me, but is the thing that we like to see is the tasting room full of people who are enjoying themselves. That is, validation for brewing building a separate facility that focuses on these highly esoteric beers, but seeing that there's an audience who appreciates them and travels far and wide to come here and sample our offerings. That's been not totally surprising, but really more heartwarming and rewarding for me. I mean, I've been doing this over 30 years, and the thing that is most rewarding to me is just seeing a tasting room full of people enjoying the beer, whether it's here at Area 2 or over at Two Roads. It's just the thing that makes my day, and I never get tired of.
And you're helping people to explore the world of the different flavors of beer as well.
Again, as I said earlier, the goal of Area 2, besides having fun doing what we're doing and having people enjoy it, is that if people come in, sample the beers and walk out of here with an expanded definition of what beer is or can be, then we've done our job.